It's day 5 of NFL free agency, so it's time to cook up my NFL free agency winners and losers so far. Happy Friday, everybody. Hope you're all getting set to have a fantastic weekend. If you're watching this video during the weekend, hope you're having a good time. Welcome into the Chase Down. My name is Chase Sr. It was a week ago Friday night where I posted my first show here on the channel. This is my brand new NFL show on YouTube. We're already over 2,000 subscribers, so you know the drill. If you want more football talk from me, go on down, hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate all of the early support. It's been awesome getting this show off the ground, and this is only the beginning. I want to talk teams and individuals here for my free agency winners and losers, and also talk about some of these quarterback contracts as well. And on the winners front, let's begin with the Los Angeles Rams. Over the last couple of years, they have been so close to winning the Super Bowl, and they are an extremely well-oiled machine. One of the top organizations in the sport. Les Snead is a top 3 general manager alongside John Schneider and Howie Roseman. You could put Brett Veach, of course, in that class as well. That might be some disrespect to Veach. I didn't mean that. But my point here being, I think those 4 GMs are in their own tier. Sean McVay is a top 3 to 5 coach in the NFL. But what has held them back when they've had some of these really good teams, especially in 2024, when they took the Philadelphia Eagles, who won a Super Bowl, down to the wire at the Link in Philly when the snow was coming down, or the Seattle Seahawks in the NFC Championship game back in January? It hasn't been their offense. Matthew Stafford at 38 years old just won an MVP. Puka Nacua is an unbelievable player. Devontae Adams, year 1 with the Rams, was balling. I like what they've done with their offensive line. Kyron Williams, Blake Corum, a good 1-2 punch at the running back position. This year, you saw Sean McVay adapt his offense a little bit and started to run a lot more 2 tight end sets and 3 tight end sets. And that's what makes him a great offensive mind, because he's always ahead of the curve. He always has foresight. He's always adapting and evolving. Their defensive front, led by Jared Verse, one of the top young players in football, has been good. They extended and gave a new contract to Nate Landman. I like him at the linebacker spot. But their secondary has been atrocious, especially their cornerback play. And so this trade for Trent McDuffie to kind of kick off their offseason is one that I really like. They get a former All-Pro in McDuffie, who's elite on the inside, very good on the outside. They give up their 29th overall pick in the first round, but they keep the Atlanta Falcons' 13th overall selection when they absolutely fleeced the Falcons last year in the draft. That's when Atlanta traded back into the first after drafting Jalen Walker out of Georgia to get another pass rusher in James Pierce, who's obviously dealing with his legal situation right now, and that doesn't look good, although one of the more severe charges dropped. So instead of him not playing ever again in the NFL, which I thought was a possibility, he's probably just going to face a stiff suspension for 2026. But in trading away 29, keeping the 13th overall pick, this is a team that was in the Final Four. They're a couple plays away from probably winning the Super Bowl, because if they beat Seattle, I don't think the Patriots are taking down the Los Angeles Rams. And now they have the 13th overall pick to use to improve their team, or they could dangle it as a trade piece. Diana Rossini reporting today on this Friday, the Los Angeles Rams have and are interested in A.J. Brown. And if I'm Howie Roseman, I'm not getting bent over in the trade negotiation. First of all, I'm asking if Puka Nacua can be included in the deal. You might think that's crazy, but how do you think negotiations work at a high level? I don't think the Rams would trade Puka, but if they don't want to extend him, could a wide receiver swap happen? More realistically, if I'm Howie, can you get to 13th overall pick for A.J. Brown? So it gives the Rams flexibility there and optionality. And so the McDuffie deal, $31 million per year for him, it's a lot of coin, because I think he's better suited on the inside where he's elite compared to as a boundary corner where I think he's still very good. But 4 years, $124 million, yeah, it's a lot of dough. But you can't be scared. You can't be timid in a type of business like this. The Rams have that motto of F them picks. And when they've made big moves like this, it's paid off. Jalen Ramsey trade, Von Miller trade. This is their MO. Go all in, put your nuts on the table. And this is a move that needed to be done to fortify a unit that has held them back It's cost them against really good passing teams, against really good wide receivers, and it really just rounds out your defense. It's the McDuffie trade. It's signing Jalen Watson, another corner, to a 3-year, $51 million deal. The Rams also re-signed Cam Curl at a pretty affordable price. He's a solid safety. That is how you address the holes that have burnt you. And I like that philosophy from the Rams. How about the New Orleans Saints? Another winner for me. I think the Saints going into 2026 are one of my favorite sleeper teams. The Saints are a team that I would not be surprised if they go from cellar to winning the division this upcoming season and being a playoff team. Toward the end of the year, the final month of the season, with Tyler Shuck coming on, I'm a believer in Kellen Moore, Chris Olave, good player. The Saints under Mickey Loomis have always prioritized bringing in good defensive pieces. I thought the Saints were playing better than any other team inside their division, and I think they have the brightest future among any team in that division. They were playing better than Atlanta. They were playing better than the Buccaneers, who were free-falling, and they were playing better than the Carolina Panthers, in my opinion, who kind of backed into the playoffs with 8 wins, hosted that playoff game, and funny enough, nearly beat the Rams, and you can make the argument, should have beat the Rams. Adding Travis Etienne for your young quarterback, not really young, but in NFL standards, Shuck's going into year 2. He's like 26, 27 years old, but he's got mobility. He's got a really good arm, hangs tough in the pocket. And Kellen Moore, as a play caller, play designer, offensive mind, always had those Cowboys offenses humming at a top 5, top 10 clip. You saw what he did 2 seasons ago with Jalen Hurts, that running attack, and the Philadelphia Eagles. He had never been known as a run-heavy offensive coordinator. He was able to adapt on the fly, and Saquon Barkley had one of the best seasons that you'll ever see from a running back. I like adding Travis Etienne. Good runner, good pass catcher, home run threat, supports your rookie quarterback when he's on that rookie deal. In an exploding offensive line market, getting David Andrews as a really good interior offensive lineman at that price tag, a savvy move for New Orleans. Look out for the Saints in 2026. I like what they're building. As far as the Las Vegas Raiders, some people might not like what they've done. Day one of free agency, they spent like $286 million. And oftentimes the teams that spend a ton of dough in free agency are not the ones standing at the end of the year competing for championships. But from a plan perspective, with what John Spytek is building, what his vision is, I like the direction in which the Raiders are headed toward. And a lot of people around the NFL really like John Spytek. He whiffed on the Pete Carroll hiring, but context is always important. They went all in on Ben Johnson. They didn't get him, so Pete Carroll was their backup plan. The Geno Smith move didn't work out. Egg on their face. They're eating money for him to now play for the New York Jets, who we'll talk about here in a moment. But what have the Raiders done, and what are they doing? They're going to draft Fernando Mendoza number 1 overall. His skill set translates to being a high-level quarterback at the NFL level, I believe. You pair Fernando Mendoza up with Clint Kubiak, a really good play caller, offensive mind, and head coach, and now you've got your quarterback and play caller in place. If you sign a guy like Kirk Cousins, consummate pro, you put him with Fernando Mendoza to get those habits in line and to help out Mendoza, that's a smart move. With Mendoza, throws with great timing, touch, accuracy, anticipation. He's more athletic than what people give him credit for. He is tough as nails. And I love how he can throw some of those 50-50 balls, given his receivers chances. That skill set translates. Plus, smart, outgoing, good personality. That's what you look for in a franchise quarterback. I did a full video on the Las Vegas Raiders yesterday explaining why they could shock some people in 2026. Be sure to check that out if you want my full thoughts on the Raiders. But you've got your quarterback, you've got your head coach, both offensive-minded. You protect your young quarterback with one of the game's best centers in Tyler Linderbaum. $27 million per year, it's a lot, but he's a really good player who's important in that offense as you're ushering in a new era and scheme. And if he's the one who's handing the ball off, snapping it to your quarterback, protecting him, is it worth it while he's on that rookie deal? You can make that argument. You've got Ashton Genty as your back, Brock Bowers as your tight end, affordable signing of Jalen Naylor. He can play. You've got Jack Beck or Besh. Got to get that pronunciation right. I'd like them to add another wide receiver, but what if they can get Omar Cooper or one of the other Indiana receivers? What if they can draft a high-end player in the second round at that receiver spot if they don't address the offensive line? On defense, Nakobe Dean's now the man in the middle. He comes from a great Eagles culture as the Raiders are trying to build a culture. Tyler Linderbaum, back to him, comes from the Ravens. Culture has never been an issue with Baltimore. One of the most well-run organizations in the sport. Kwity Paye is a grinder, good edge setter, good run defender. You've got him. Quay Walker, a little bit of an overpay. But Eric Stokes, $10 million per year for a player who you have drafted and developed at a really important position. I like that move. I mean, the Raiders have added like 8 or 9 starters in free agency. And I think they'll be competitive in 2026, not a playoff team. And I know that the division is very tough. Kansas City reloading, Denver on the rise, Chargers. Everything is there if they can keep their offensive line healthy. But I think the Raiders can surprise a lot of people moving forward. The Titans, another team that spent a lot of cash, but I love what they're building on defense for a defensive-minded head coach. What Robert Saleh did with that Niners team last year, absolutely incredible. For them to go on the road and hold that Eagles high-powered, talented offense to 19 points. I know the coordinator stunk in Kevin Patullo, but the Niners had the worst pass rush in the NFL, dead last in sacks. They were working with their 5th, 6th, and 7th linebackers, and they hold Philadelphia on the road to 19 points. Robert Saleh all year had guys playing hard. He has been a defensive mind who's been able to pivot and adjust with where offenses have gone in this modern era. Players respect him. He's a great communicator. He brings great energy. He's a great guy as far as prep, and he's a great defensive play caller. So now with your defensive-minded head coach, he gets to build his defensive line around Jeffrey Simmons, who long has been the second best defensive tackle in the sport behind Chris Jones. You sign John Franklin Myers. He can play defensive end, defensive tackle, mostly along the interior, but Saleh loves guys who he can plug and play at both spots, allows you to be on the field for 3 downs. And you add Cordell Flott, good slot corner, a little bit of an overpay. Alontae Taylor, $20 million per year, overpay, but a solid corner. But with that Titans front, after trading for Jermaine Johnson as well, that defense is going to be really good with Robert Saleh calling it. And on offense, you surround Cam Ward with Brian Dable. You add Wan'Dale Robinson, a slot wideout, can be the best friend for a young quarterback. I like Alec Ayumanner, good size coming out of Stanford last year. And now you've got optionality going into the draft. You have the 4th overall pick. You could go David Bailey, Reuben Bain to complete that defensive line. You could go offensive tackle, although I think it might be early for this year's offensive tackle class. You could trade back if you wanted to. Or how about this one? What if the Titans drafted Jeremiah Love at number 4 to give Cam Ward a much-needed running mate in that backfield, much-needed weapon, and run game support? Tennessee needs to improve their offensive line. There is no doubt about that. But their defense is going to allow that team to be feisty and competitive in 2026. Tough division with Jacksonville on the uptick. Houston, best defense in the NFL, in my opinion. But I think the Titans are going to be competitive. I'm going to put Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs both as winners. It has been a long time since the Kansas City Chiefs have had a 1,000-yard rusher. And I believe it's been since like 2018 or 2017 that they've had a 1,000-yard rusher. Yeah, Kareem Hunt, 2017, 1,327 yards. Patrick Mahomes was not the quarterback then. So Patrick Mahomes, when he's been the quarterback of the Chiefs, if these numbers are not wrong, has not had a 1,000-yard rusher. How crazy is that? Early on, he did have Tyreek Hill in his prime. Travis Kelce still in his prime. Good offensive line. Andy Reid, maybe the best offensive-minded head coach in the history of the NFL. But Patrick Mahomes is coming off a torn ACL. And so I think the Chiefs' identity going into this upcoming season is to reset just a little bit, right? And to have a little bit of a different identity. They have addressed their offensive line the last 2 off seasons by way of the draft and in free agency. If Josh Simmons can stay on the field, he looks to be a franchise tackle. Creed Humphrey, I think, is better than Tyler Linderbaum, even though the paychecks don't say that. And so help out Patrick Mahomes as he comes off that severe injury. You get Kenneth Walker at a pretty good rate. I thought he was awesome down the stretch. Contact balance, vision, toughness, speed to get to the perimeter, a bell cow back who can also catch screen passes out of the backfield. Andy Reid's been doing that since the early 2000s with Deuce Staley and Brian Westbrook. And giving that support to Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs kind of changing their offensive philosophy. I like what they're doing. They're reloading a little bit. Re-signed Tyquan Thornton, speed threat, 438 yards last year, 2 years, $11 million. They let Brian Cook go, got a bag from Cincinnati. So they signed Alohi Gilman, the former Charger, to a 3-year, $24.75 million contract. He has a 90.1 coverage grade since 2023, 6th among safeties, and he's cheaper than Brian Cook. The Chiefs are just smart, man. Brett Veach is a dog. And I just think that they make ahead of the curve moves that are very intelligent. I think they need to give Patrick Mahomes some more assistance. And now they have the number 9 pick. Where do they go? Do they go wide receiver? Do they go offensive line? Do they go edge rusher? I think they should hold on to the pick because how often is Kansas City going to be inside the top 10? And I think they can get a player who really, really helps them for 2026 and beyond. I do really like what the San Francisco 49ers have done. Everybody freaked out about that Mike Evans deal because he's 32, coming off a year in which he had another hamstring injury. But Mike Evans is a future Hall of Famer in my book. He's one of the most productive wide receivers in the history of the National Football League, the only player ever to have 11 straight years of more than 1,000 yards to start his career in Kyle Shanahan's offense as the X, with what Shanahan can do, scheming him open, with his route tree, how he complements Ricky Pearsall, how he demands double teams to take safeties out of the box because they did that all last year to stop Christian McCaffrey. Teams loaded the box, the Niners couldn't run it. They were like 30th in yards per carry. He also is a great complement to Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy throws with timing, touch, accuracy, anticipation. He'll throw up some 50-50 balls. He's an underrated deep ball thrower. Mike Evans excels with all of that. It's also a young wide receiver room for the Niners. Ricky Pearsall needs to mature a little bit, needs to get healthy. Jacob Cowing, Jordan Watkins need to get on the field. You put Mike Evans in there, guy loves ball. He's a professional. He's very mature, very high character. And if he can stay healthy, I think that he can go off. And they gave him $16 million in guaranteed money. If he plays well in this wide receiver market, absolute steal. It's pretty much a 1-year deal. And if he does play well, run it back. Very affordable price. The trade for Osa Odigizua. The Niners defensive tackle group a season ago had 4.5 sacks. The Niners, as I mentioned earlier, dead last in the NFL in sacks. I like Alfred Collins and CJ West. They're 2 rookies from last year who are going to be year 2 players this year, but they are run-stuffing defensive tackles. Osa Odigizua is a good run defender, but he's an excellent pass rusher who among defensive tackles over the last 5 years since coming into the league has been one of the more disruptive players from the interior. High character guy, very violent, complements Nick Bosa well. They did lose Bryce Huff to retirement. I was looking forward to him being on that line alongside Odigizua. And Nick Bosa, Michael Williams, a defensive tackle on pass rush, obvious passing down situations. So that's a little bit of a loss. I think the Niners need to bring in a pass rushing edge to replace Bryce Huff. But that Osa Odigizua deal, really good. They're giving him $20 million in average annual value, but the Cowboys already gave him a $20 million signing bonus. He's entering year 2 of a 4-year deal, so he's under contract. The Niners were interested in John Franklin Myers. They knew that they were going to have to pay him 18 to 20. He got 21, so they were clearly interested in a defensive tackle. Odighizuwa has missed one game, also in 5 years. And think about it from this standpoint. If you have an issue with the Niners giving up a third-round pick, number one, are they going to get a player in the third round better than Odighizuwa? I don't think so. Two, if he were to be a free agent, he'd be far more expensive than $20 million per season. Carolina Panthers, another winner for me. $30 million a year for Jalen Phillips is a ton, but did they make up for it with a Devin Lloyd contract, which I think is pretty team-friendly? The defensive line, the pass rush, the second level of that defense needed to improve, and they're going to be much improved there for Carolina. I like Dave Canales. I like some of the young pieces that they have. I don't really trust the quarterback in Bryce Young. I think he's too small, but I'm going to put the Panthers as a winner here. Other notes before I get to my losers. This is why I kind of like Tua Tagovailoa to the Atlanta Falcons. Number one, the Miami Dolphins are paying for him to go away. They released him, and they're giving him more than $30 million this season. Two, I think Tua is a solid scheme fit for Kevin Stefanski, who frankly I do think is overrated. But Tua is not a strong-armed quarterback. He is not big. He is not mobile. He doesn't have a laser. He struggles in cold weather. Hasn't been great against good defenses. Well, now he's going to be competing with Michael Penix. I think he's better than Michael Penix. I think that he can play point guard in Kevin Stefanski's offense. But here's my point. This is why I kind of like Tua to Atlanta. He can't play in the cold. He doesn't have a strong arm. And with that strong arm, he's not a mobile quarterback. He's got those concussion issues, but he's going to be playing 2 times a year indoors against the Saints. He's going to be playing on the road against the Saints indoors. He's going to be playing all of his home games for the Falcons indoors. He's going to be traveling to Tampa Bay to play outside in warm weather. And he's going to be playing in Carolina, which most of the NFL season is a warm weather climate. So that's half the season right there in which Tua is playing in solid weather for a weak arm quarterback. So I could see him actually having some success, and the Falcons are signing him on a vet min deal. There's no downside here. See if it can work. Malik Willis and the Dolphins. I thought he was going to get paid more. And when he had to replace Jordan Love the last couple of years, I thought he was tremendous. But I thought he was going to get a Sam Darnold type of contract, $30 to $35 million per year. He goes to Miami, 3 years, 67.5, $45 million in fully guaranteed money. And it's $22.5 million per year. If Malik Willis plays well, $22.5 million per year for a really good quarterback, a steal. He's mobile, has a good arm, good frame, and he really impressed me how he was able to flush the early failure with Tennessee, go to Green Bay, and on multiple occasions fill in for Jordan Love and play excellent football. I like Romeo Doubs to the Patriots. They needed to get Drake May, a legitimate wide receiver. Is he a high-end number one? I don't think so. I think he's more of a number two, but a good route runner, slippery, explosive, 6'2", 200 pounds, run sub 4.5, and he's better than Stephon Diggs. And I don't think that you need a number one wideout to win a Super Bowl. So Dobbs to New England was something that they needed to accomplish this offseason. And if they trade for A.J. Brown, Romeo Doubs for Drake May on his rookie contract, solid. As for my free agency losers, I have a saying. This is why bad teams stay bad. The New York Jets. Franchise tagged running back Breece Hall. Doesn't make any sense to overpay for a running back on a 1-year contract, and I don't think they extend him. You could have traded him at the NFL trade deadline, I think, for a third-round pick to a running back desperate team. Jets elected to hold on to him. They sign edge rusher Kingsley Enagbare to a 1-year, $10 million deal. Kind of an overpay for an average player. Joseph Asai, 3 years, $36 million. David Onyemata, 1 year, $10.5. Demario Davis, good cultural fit, 2 years, $22. At this point of his career, he's like in his late 30s, right? He's making $11 million per season at 37 years old. That's wild. Traded edge rusher Jermaine Johnson for defensive lineman Tavondre Sweat. Who would I rather have? Jermaine Johnson. acquired Minkah Fitzpatrick from the Dolphins and signed him to a fresh 3-year, $40 million contract. If I'm Minkah, it's like, man, I'd love to go to a good team, but he'll take the money. That's definitely a cultural move for the Jets to bring in a really good safety, but he's past his prime. And then they traded for Geno Smith. I just don't see how this is going to work out for Aaron Glenn. I think it's going to be a disaster. I was texting with my buddy Kevin Malone, and he's a diehard Jets fan. Kevin, if you're watching, I appreciate you. And he had a great quote. I said, dude, I'm sorry. They're an effing joke. He said, it's true. Fish rots from the head. Woody needs to let the football guys football. Like, Aaron Glenn is your guy, but you make him fire his whole staff. I have zero confidence they'll hit on any of these draft picks. There's no direction with that organization. There's no plan with that organization. And they're playing in the AFC East. Bills are going to be a Super Bowl contender. Patriots just made it to the Super Bowl. I think the Dolphins are going to be much improved. Jeff Hafley impressed me the most among all coaches who I heard talk at the NFL Combine. I know it's a presser, but I think he's got a plan and a direction. The Cleveland Browns, another loser. They let every member of their offensive line go following the season. The Chargers last year, they were injured along their offensive line. They also weren't good. And the Browns signed Zion Johnson to a 3-year, $49.5 million contract, which includes $32.4 million in guaranteed money. Isaac Seumalo signed for $10 million per year with Arizona. You're giving Zion Johnson 3 years, $49.5 million. Titus Howard's a solid player, but the Browns traded for him in a move with Houston. Houston's had an awful offensive line, and then the Browns gave Howard a 3-year, $63 million contract extension. I like Elgton Jenkins as a player. I think he's a better guard than center, but he had a pretty bad injury last year. 2 years, $24 million, and I have no idea what they do at quarterback. Deshaun Watson might start week 1. Dylan Gabriel, I don't think he's an NFL player. Shadur Sanders is the guy I'd roll with, but that offensive line stinks. Arizona Cardinals, another loser for me. They are going to be a nightmare in 2026. Maybe the worst owner in the sport, Michael Bidwell. Think about the division that they're playing in. They're in a division where 3 teams for the first time in NFL history just won 12 games. Rams, Niners, Seahawks. Their quarterback plan is Jacoby Brissett, Gardner Minshew. Almost feel bad for Mike LaFleur. Are they already tanking for a quarterback in the 2026 class? It looks that way. But they are going to be an awful football team. I'm going to put the Baltimore Ravens as a loser here. I do like Trey Hendrickson as a player. It wasn't a bad backup plan to pivot to him, and you got him a little bit cheaper than Max Crosby, and you got back your 2 first-round picks. But I think the optics of everything, not a good look. Eric DeCosta, very slimy move. I think he saw that Trey Hendrickson went unsigned the first couple of days of free agency. The market was there. And he's like, man, everybody's killing us for giving up these 2 first-round picks. I can pivot to Trey Hendrickson. Let's fail that physical. He tried to fleece the Eagles in the Jair Alexander move when Alexander's knee wasn't right. Then the NFL awarded Philadelphia nearly $900,000. Eric DeCosta, the Ravens have a history of doing this. Then he tried to say, oh, yeah, I'm heartbroken by this. Our original plan was to sign Trey Hendrickson and to trade for Max Crosby. You're telling me a historically conservative organization was going to do that? Not buying it. So I don't think it's going to impact teams doing business with Baltimore. I know I talked about that right off the jump. It's just not a great look, man. It's not a great look. Don't piss on my shoes and tell me it's raining, right? And then lastly, the Colts. Will Shane Steichen be the head coach next year? Will Chris Ballard still be the GM? I don't know, man. NFL trade deadline, they gave up 2 first-round picks for Sauce Gardner. They've got some needs on that roster. They don't have a first this year or next year. The original Max Crosby price was 2 ones. He is worlds better and plays a more premium position than Sauce Gardner. I think Ballard might be regretting that. And then the Colts give Daniel Jones, coming off a torn Achilles, a 2-year, $88 million deal, which could be worth up to $100 million. He gets $50 million the first year. It's the largest 2-year contract in history. Daniel Jones, what a businessman. Fleeced the New York Giants and got that huge deal. Doing the same with the Colts. And it's kind of a misnomer and a myth that he played really well last year. You look at the numbers, 13 games, 68% completion rate, threw for 3,100 yards, 24 touchdowns, 8 picks. But a lot of that was inflated. A lot of those numbers, the positive ones, came early in the year. After the first month, he wasn't that good. And he's coming off a torn Achilles, which we've seen can take a little while that following year to find a groove. So don't love it from the Colts standpoint. All right. My NFL winners and losers, 5 days in, pretty much a weekend to NFL free agency. If you made it until the end of the video, give me a real one down below. I love you all. I appreciate you all. Have a great weekend. More content to come as we continue to build the chase down.